All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the September 16, 2014 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It is my privilege to call this meeting to order. There are copies of our agenda for our meeting on either side of the room. If you haven't already done so, please pick one up from over on the side and you can follow along with our proceedings tonight. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to items that are on our agenda tonight, as well as a segment under item 4 on our agenda, which is reserved for public comments of a general nature. If there are any questions or comments of a general nature, that would be the point in the evening to come up to the podium and share those comments or questions with us at that point in time. It is our proud tradition to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, so we would ask everyone now to please rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much for that. Now I'd like to ask our fine village clerk, April Holden, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Olson?
Here.
Commissioner Rankin?
Here.
Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Here.
Commissioner Durkin?
Here.
Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 3 on our agenda, which pertains to minutes of prior council meetings. We have one set of minutes to review and approve tonight. Those are our minutes from our regular council meeting of September 9th, 2014. Are there any questions or comments, corrections or changes to those minutes from any members of the council? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Those minutes are approved. Thank you very much. All right, just like that, we are at, well, we're almost at item 4 for public comments. And so if you have any public comments, we're going to get to those just shortly, but we have a couple of very special things that we need to do first. We have a couple of proclamations to read tonight. One with respect to American Pharmacist Month, which we'll do second. And first, we have one that pertains to Constitution Week. And Carol Wanschneider from the chapter of the Daughters of American Revolution is here tonight to receive this proclamation. So I will read it and then we'll go from there. Whereas on September 17th, I'm sorry, let me start again, take 2. Whereas September 17th, 2014 marks the 227th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States by the 1787 Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Martin T. Tully, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd, 2014, to be Constitution Week in the Village of Downers Grove, and urge all citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution that they had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. Well, that's something to reflect upon for a moment. Ms. Wanschneider, if you could come up, I'd be proud to present this to you. New camera system, so I'm not quite sure where the center is. We'll start right here. I think it's relatively still center. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
How are you? Proclamation is yours.
Thank you.
There's always 2.
Oh.
Obligation, if you wanted to say anything at the podium, you could. There's no need to. We're
I think
sliding.
all I'd like to say.
Would you mind doing it at the podium? Everything is wired and televised these days. We all have to be. One of these days we'll have a parabolic microphone that works.
I just think we should all remember what the Constitution gives us when we see what's going on in the rest of the world. I think we have the rights and privileges of very few people in this world.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here tonight. Second proclamation. We are once again honored and thrilled to have representatives of Midwestern University College of Pharmacy here today. Come out every year. I think it's now been 3 or 4 years that you've graced us with your presence. We're always glad to see you. I just know that looking out of the sea of white lab coats, I feel healthier. Seeing that, don't you? I know Commissioner Durkin does. I think he's actually an inch taller.
I don't. I learned tonight that there is an actual white coat syndrome.
Is there?
They all told me.
Well, the power of suggestion.
Yeah.
So we're very glad to have you out here tonight. I'd like to read the proclamation, and then we're going to invite Kelsey Caruso to come up and say a few words on behalf of the group. And I know you're going to introduce some of the events that are coming up soon, including the health fair, which is a no-miss in Downers Grove. But let's do the proclamation first. Whereas pharmacy is one of the oldest of the health professions concerned with the health and well-being of all people. And whereas pharmacists are specifically educated with a focus and level of expertise on the medication therapy that exceeds that of other healthcare providers, and are ideally suited to work collaboratively with other healthcare providers and patients to improve medication use and outcomes by providing services through medication therapy management. And whereas the Midwestern University Chicago College of Pharmacy graduates approximately 200 well-qualified pharmacists yearly who go on to enter the healthcare system to practice patient-centered care. And whereas the American Pharmacists Association and the Illinois Pharmacists Association have declared October as American Pharmacist Month with the theme, Know Your Medicines, Know Your Pharmacist. Now therefore, I, Martin T. Tully, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim October 2014 as American Pharmacist Month in the Village of Downers Grove and urge all our citizens to acknowledge the valuable services of pharmacists to provide safe, affordable, and beneficial pharmaceutical care services and products to all citizens. Now, if I could ask all our wonderful representatives from Midwestern University College of Pharmacy to please join me up in front here. We'll take a moment to assemble. Get you in the middle. All right, we'll get you in the middle here. I know why I'm orchestrating this. You guys have more experience with the banner than I do. All right, we'll do it this way. The proclamation is yours. I think we've got it the right way up. There's always two. Two for the house. All right, terrific. Congratulations. And if you'd like to share a few words with us, please do. The podium is yours.
Mayors Holy, Commissioners, and residents of Downers Grove, on behalf of the American Pharmacists Association, Academy of Student Pharmacists at the Midwestern University Chicago College of Pharmacy, thank you very much for proclaiming October as American Pharmacist Month in the Village of Downers Grove. The purpose of this proclamation is to help us recognize that pharmacists are the most accessible healthcare professional in the community. From questions about your medication to administering your flu shots, your local pharmacist can address concerns you might never think to voice. That's because we care deeply about the health and safety of our patients. On October 4th, Midwestern University, in collaboration with the Downers Grove Park District, will be hosting an interdisciplinary health fair where student pharmacists will be offering free flu shots, blood pressure screenings, blood glucose screenings, and much more. Everyone is invited to join us at the Downers Grove Park District, 4500 Belmont Road, between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. on October 4th, and see what your pharmacist can do for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the Community Health Fair on October 4th is certainly worthy of mentioning again. It is a terrific community service that Midwestern University provides. I have been fortunate to attend it on multiple occasions at various locations, and I believe it is at, Damien, where's it going to be held at again this year? Rec Center. It's going to be at the Recreation Center again on Belmont. Thank you. I thought that was a good location. I know it's been on campus in the past, and I think that moving it to a more centralized location worked out pretty well. I've got some good attendance last year. Now, I will let you know, and I'm going to put on a plug here for my fellow commissioners, that I get, as you probably do, many offers to receive flu shots, whether at work or somewhere in the neighborhood or maybe at home or maybe at traveling pharmacist, you might have different opportunities. But by far, I prefer to have my flu shot at the health fair, that's the community health fair that's put on by Midwestern University.
It's painless.
It's painless, it's professionally done. And
How
gosh
many years have
darn
you been
it,
in school now?
people like it. So I'm looking forward to that again. It truly is a wonderful service that you provide to the community. A lot of people take advantage of it for different health screenings, no screaming, just screening. Try to keep the screaming to a minimum. Blood pressure, glucose levels, a lot of different things. So to the extent that folks have an interest in that, I would encourage them to come out. So thank you again very much for doing that. The community really appreciates it, and we really appreciate it, and have a long and proud tradition of coordinating and partnering with Midwestern University. So good to see you here again. Looking forward to it next year. All right, then, with that, we are on to promised public comment, item 4 on our agenda. See, I'm already not feeling as healthy as they leave the room. If any members of the audience have any questions or comments of the general nature that they would like to raise with the council at this point in time, please do so. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilmen and Commissioners, I should say. Not Councilmen, you're Commissioners.
We are indeed.
I should keep that straight. My name is Bill Robles, 7800 Queens Court, and I wanted to go on record as complimenting the workshop we had last week here in the council chambers, and the way it was set up, and it was televised. And I had the thought earlier this evening that in way of promulgating the activity and the research and the discussions that were had last week, it would be purposeful that our television station put together a somewhat of an educational documentary that could be aired frequently, like you see some of the events here in the village of Downers Grove, travel films and messages for the senior citizens. I think this could be an ongoing educational tool. When people do pull up Downers Grove TV, they could see the action that was in the participation that was had last week. And it was very good discussion. I must compliment everybody. Secondly, in somewhat of a historical vein, I went through some archives I have in my deep, dark basement. Back in the early 2000s, there was a lot of concern about home rule and referenda, and I went back and looked, and home rule was brought here into Downers Grove in 1970-71 when it was passed in the state of Illinois, mainly for the benefit of Richard J. Daley, because he was the main beneficiary of home rule, and it was crafted into a constitutional amendment. However, it came to Downers Grove not by request, but it came by definition, because at the time we had 25,000 people, and that's all you needed to qualify for home rule. And that took effect here in 1970-71. And it was interesting to note from my notes that when it came into effect in Downers Grove in 1971, the sitting mayor at the time was Mayor Frank Houck. And he adopted a resolution, 7181, advocating citizen input by advisory or binding referendum with large budget items. He was well aware at the time of the power of home rule. And the council at that time was very deliberate in seeking out the public's opinions, either, like it said here, either an advisory or a binding referendum. And as you go back into the archives of the village, I think it would be beneficial for all to do a little homework and see how your predecessor councils treated the referendum and the power of home rule. It is a tremendous power, home rule. Gives the sitting body the power to tax, the power to spend, without consulting the public. It was well said last week by a few of the commissioners, and the mayor, I believe, too, that you are elected officials. and it's predisposed that the elected officials will invoke the will of the people as opposed to any special interests and so forth and so on. So that's all I wanted to do is call that to your attention. There's a lot of responsibility that's setting up on, as you well expressed, sitting at the dais. It's also twice as much responsibility when you have the power of home rule, because you have to make a decision that's justifiable or comfortable to everyone. Thanks for listening to my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Roble. And I know this council and previous councils have never been more mindful of the responsibilities, the awesome responsibilities of elected office. Each of us up here is not just an elected official, but we're also people who live in the neighborhood. And sure, home rule is a power, and it is something that non-home rule communities don't have. Yet it's something you see more and more communities moving to because they need the flexibility of what's called self-determination. We can't sit here and have our future dictated to us by Springfield. We need to be able to figure out how to participate in our own survival, and that means having the ability and the flexibility as a community to come together with solutions that make sense for Downers Grove. And the community has spoken on that issue on more than one occasion. In fact, very recently, when the very question of home rule was put to the voters, who I believe by a more than 3-to-1 margin resoundingly said that it was something that this community has exercised responsibly and should continue to do so going forward. The voice of the people is heard frequently. We reflect that every single Tuesday night and in other multiple meetings that this council and prior councils, way before any of us up here, have embraced wholeheartedly. I would challenge folks to find a community in DuPage County that holds more public meetings, has more avenues of public communication than Downers Grove. One thing has changed significantly since Mayor Hawk's day, God rest his soul, and that is that there are so many different ways for people to participate: in person, by mail, by telephone, by email, by social media, by earmarks, by, my goodness, it seems like technology has almost put the constituency in Village Hall. And so we hear the voice of the people all the time and in many, many different ways. And that is something that is embraced by this council and prior councils, and I suspect future councils, very strongly, and will continue to do so. And of course, there is always the ability of the people every 2 years to reflect their views. If they disagree with the course of the community, they have the ability to change who sits up here. Every 2 years, there are at least 3 or 4 people whose seats are up for re-election. And so I would suggest that you're right. It is a what is it? I don't want to quote the Spider-Man movie, but with great responsibility, with great power comes great responsibility. You betcha. And I think every single person up here and every single person out there and every single person's staff takes that power with great responsibility and takes it very seriously. It is one thing, though, assuredly true, that it is impossible, I put it to you, to please everyone. No matter what we did, there would be someone who would disagree. What I think our sacred charge is to, and all future leaders, is to do their homework, as you rightfully suggest, to listen to all competing viewpoints, to be able to articulate a rational basis for a decision, and then to be able to articulate that basis to the constituents. Not everyone's going to agree with the outcome, but I think if they know that homework was done well, that different competing views were listened to and considered, and that there is a rational basis for the decision, even if it's not the preferred one, most people, I've found, will respect the process and respect things going forward. So I appreciate your comments. I think it is important, as you have done, to remind everyone of the importance of exercising that power with responsibility. I'd like to think that prior councils, this council, and future councils will continue to do so as good stewards of the community with a high degree of responsibility. Even if, ultimately, we cannot please all 49,000 residents of this community. That is the one thing that I'm certain will never happen. But thank you for your comments. They are greatly appreciated and always timely. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. William Waldeck, 1409 Willard Place, right here in Downers Grove. Let's see, a few weeks ago I said that I would have spread my comments about the planning sessions that you had over a few weeks. And so this is the second part of my comments about the planning process. There's a popular saying that says that the end does not justify the means, but there's a corollary, that is, the means or process doesn't necessarily justify the end either. Years ago, council and staff would get together, prioritize needs, wants, and add the price tags. Then they would go to find the revenue to pay for the projects. They made hard choices, not the recently bragged about hard choices where cuts were made to social services and seniors and that. Those were more ideological accomplishments. I'm talking hard choices. A couple years years before I ran for council, there was a feeding frenzy in the budget sessions about increasing taxes, both sales and property taxes. Then Commissioner Schnell, and I will use her name, said, "I'm concerned about the people on fixed incomes." The frenzy stopped. You can complain that the taxes are too low or that the previous councils kept taxes artificially low, and even further debate whether that was the result of fear of being reelected or whether it was a genuine concern for taxpayers. We were taxpayers, and there was one list, and we even debated whether taxpayers should be treated as owners or customers. Now you have a stormwater utility, which some people call a stormwater tax or a rain tax. You have two lists of priorities. You have two number ones, two number twos, two number threes, etc., because of added revenue and borrowing potential. And I hate it when one council member, whose name is forbidden to be uttered, congratulates staff on collecting revenue that they were supposed to, getting a better bond rating, because we have a dedicated source of revenue. Well, I am that dedicated source of revenue. People in this room, residents in this room, are dedicated sources of revenue. The people at home, whether they're watching or watching reality TV, whatever they're doing, they're a dedicated source of revenue. I can think of no term like dedicated source of revenue that is colder, impersonal, detached, and more unempathetic than to describe the people that have to pay and have no choice. Such detachment makes it easy to decide to raise stormwater fees by 8.5% per year for the next, 12 to 15 years. Unless somebody changed companies or careers, I know of no one who got an 8.5% increase. Not even the police contract that contained the Chicken Little clause that got 8.5% over the life of the contract, let alone per year. One council member, whose name is forbidden to be uttered, give me a second here.
And by the way, it's not that people's names are forbidden for being uttered, but as a former member of this body, you know that we have council rules, and part of those rules apply to decorum in this chamber, which applies to those who address the council, and that is the comments are to be directed to the chair and on topics related to the village and not directed to individual members of the council. That's all I'm referring to. And I know you're very familiar with that rule. I was going to pull it up, but that would be entirely unnecessary.
Well, he had mentioned that he didn't want kids today to have to pay for these problems when they get into their 20s. The fact is that there are so many places in Downers Grove where you can live and not have stormwater problems. Also, over time, projects can be completed, so there are even more choices. But if you keep increasing fees and borrowing money, which triples the cost of any project due to interest, these future 20-somethings will be unable to escape the payments and the debt that might even be passed on to their children. Multiple priority lists and increasing the debt is not a plan. A $10 million project becomes a $30 million project due to interest. If you had started a pay-as-you-go when I first talked about it, you could have had that police station or village hall or stormwater instead of paying interest. You could have used the money for other projects. Even if you started today, it'll take at least a couple years before you get started. A few weeks ago, you had a fantastic council meeting which kind of brought previous council actions home to roost. That meeting had addressed political intrigue, historic preservation, and neighborhood ravages by stormwater. You were right, Mayor, it was the best historic preservation process we could come up with at the time. We see now that it is fairly ineffective. What should be part of planning? That should be part of planning, although council makeup now may not have changed enough to make an effective one. We also see that tree preservation is also not effective. That neighborhood that has the stormwater problems, those problems were mitigated by trees, which have now been clear-cut. I know of at least 2 other neighborhoods where there were projects and problems because of clear-cutting, and the plans were abandoned, leaving the village and the taxpayers to resolve problems in their wake. Our redevelopment ordinance allows inappropriate structures that exacerbate problems for the neighbors. To make matters worse, at the stormwater meeting, people who bought property where there are problems now want us, the taxpayers, to buy their property. Maybe we should have been planning meetings to address tree preservation, not building on poor drainage areas, preventing construction that exacerbates problems for the neighbors, rather than planning on purchasing the problems and planning expensive public works projects. In other words, planning meetings to prevent these problems rather than planning on raising money to fix what we should have prevented in the first place. That's the second of my planning meeting comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Waldeck. I have a feeling that it's going to be a multi-part mini-series we're going to be seeing. Always appreciate your comments and glad to see you here. Just a couple things I wanted to mention, as long as you touched upon them, is I don't recall, if memory serves, tree preservation was a topic of discussion prior to the recession. I think you were on council at that point in time. And I remember, as I'm sure you do, that that was an issue that many people were passionately in favor of. But as I hinted at earlier, we have a large community with a very divergent and well-engaged and well-informed constituency who don't always necessarily agree on things. And there were also those who expressed a view that they should not be told by government what they can and can't have on their property, or private property, in terms of trees. Clearly, trees and vegetation can assist with the stormwater issue, no question about it. Nobody disagrees with that. But the intrusiveness of government is something that people hold different views on. And I remember that issue being passionately discussed, and there were opposing views. And that was part of the reason, as I'm sure you'll recall, why a tree preservation ordinance did not proceed. But it wasn't out of lack of interest of entertaining the topic by this council. I remember, in fact, going to a seminar on that very subject at the Morton Arboretum. There's plenty of information on it. That's just the issue of, is it something the community wants? And it's a question that periodically raises its head. During the recession, we didn't hear much about it because, frankly, there wasn't much redevelopment going on. Now, thank goodness that the economy is returning to look more like its former robust health. It's a subject that has come up again. That's point number one. Point number two, we are currently looking at the possibility of enacting more restrictive stormwater regulations than what DuPage County would currently require. That would go at least some way towards addressing one of the points you raised, which is, should we continue to allow situations to arise that contribute to the problems we're trying to solve? That's a fair question. It is, but just all I'm pointing out is it is something that will be a topic of conversation within the community very soon. And again, we will see where the community weighs in on that topic, because back to you, Mr. Roble, it is something that we obviously do want to hear the community's voice on. So I just wanted to point that out. Those are two, I think, appropriate topics and fair questions, and ones that either have been considered or will be considered again.
Real quick one.
Sure.
No questions, just to thank you and pointing out that you were right. No, historic preservation, tree preservation, all those things were seriously discussed and considered by council, and it might be time for a revisit. I don't know. I'm suggesting it, but you know, it was what it was at the time, based on who was on council and the public input and so forth. So appreciate we did what we could, and maybe it's time, maybe not, just suggesting. And thank you.
Fair question, and again, you're absolutely right. Times change, people's perspectives change. It could very well be time to reconsider the issue. As I said, during the recession, it really wasn't a topic of conversation because there wasn't much going on. now that that circumstance has changed, and it's once again perhaps a fair question to put on the table. Thank you for your comments. Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Don Zimmerman, pastor of First Baptist Church in Downers Grove. Came to this community in 1976. Did not anticipate I would be here most of my life. Up to that time, actually had lived nowhere longer than 4 years. So this was a great place to make home, and I have raised my family here. I'm very thankful for this community. I'm here tonight because I understood that the taxation on houses of worship, the stormwater retention amendment was going to be on the agenda. I understand that it did not make it tonight, and so I just wanted to come on behalf of the literally thousands of people, part of the community of faith of the Downers Grove area, plus the many who come from outside of our community to worship in our places of faith as well as attend our schools. We have very definitely felt, as we anticipated in our budgets and so forth, the cost that is involved in this for each of the different houses of worship. And not only what the initial cost will be, but also what the add-on yearly will be. And so I just wanted to come back and on behalf of many other churches, and I know there's other pastors who will be back here again, to just emphasize to you how important we believe this is. One of the principles that I think is being violated here, and I know we don't agree on this, but I do believe that this is a taxation. We have a record of several hundred years of not taxing the houses of worship, recognizing the special services that they bring, social services as well as spiritual services to the community. And so that's why I feel very strongly that we do not want to start down this path with what really is a taxation of the houses of worship. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate your comments, and this is another fine example of a subject that it was brought up a couple of years ago, a year ago. It typically will come up again about this time of the year as we start to look at the status in terms of the funding of the stormwater utility, which is what you're referring to, and the fact that a stormwater utility has been held, and not everyone agrees with this, but has been held to be a fee and not a tax, and therefore applicable to otherwise tax-exempt properties, which is really what you're talking about, is tax-exempt properties, because clearly some of those certainly are the houses of worship that we value in our community, but there are other tax-exempt parcels in the community as well, and whether a stormwater utility should apply to them or not. That is also clearly a subject that, as you well know, and I think anyone watching for the last year or so is aware of, that there are differing views on. There are differing views in this council, there are differing views in the community. I've heard folks equally passionately make the point you just did, and I've also heard folks that perhaps maybe not within your earshot, but they will equally passionately make the point the other way. Because obviously stormwater does affect all of us, and I think that, again, reasonable people could disagree on that point, and it's a matter of, it's completely appropriate to ask that question periodically and see where it goes. So thank you for being here and for expressing your views on it. We certainly understand your perspective in that. It would be very much similar if tax-exempt properties weren't, well, as the name would suggest, a tax-exempt property was tax-exempt if now they're paying a fee for something that they didn't previously contribute to the cost of managing in our community. That is by definition an additional cost. We understand that, so thank you. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilman. My name is Bob Peterson. I live at 6861 Camden Road, Downers Grove, Illinois. I also own Leibenguth Moving and Storage, located at 1301 Warren Avenue, Downers Grove. I've been a resident all my life here in Downers, and I want to try to protect the painted sign I have on my building against the sign ordinance. I've been here before, and I can't count the number of phone calls that I have received, newspaper articles that have been written. Channel 7 Eyewitness News came out. I've even gotten a phone call all the way from Florida. What's going on with a sign that's been there for forever, almost, it seems. And because of that, I kind of put together a little list since I've lived in Downers Grove. And my own personal opinion is that Downers Grove looks like it's a self-contained community. We had, at one point, 6 gas stations, 5 car dealerships, 3 banks, 5 churches, 3 lumber yards, 3 hardware stores, 2 grocery stores, 2 smaller grocery stores, a butcher shop, 2 theaters, our own dairy, a shoe store, FW Woolworths, 3 delicatessens, 2 department stores, a newsstand, 2 bakeries, 2 jewelry shops, the Downers Grove Reporter, and only 1 moving company. And because of all that, I just feel like I'm the last dinosaur alive because every one of these businesses are gone. I'm the only one left that's came in around the same area. 1928 is when the business started, and I've been there for roughly 44 years. And I'm just trying to survive a small business, and that Downers Grove is made up 95% of small business. And I just hate to see my business kind of go down the road and just die off like you would see a family member dying of cancer. What do I do? I'm here for help, and I'm hoping that you can give me some help. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here again tonight. Obviously, just by context, you've been here before. This question was raised to the council. There was a request to consider a proposed text amendment to the sign ordinance that perhaps wouldn't have gotten everything that you would like, but would have at least addressed the issue of signs facing railway right-of-ways. That language in that proposed text amendment to the sign ordinance was prepared by staff. It was presented to council. If memory serves, there was a motion that was made by Commissioner Olson. As the mayor, I can't make or second motions. I can vote, but I can't make or second motions, and that failed for us a second at that point in time. And that's where things stand, but just so people know the history behind it. Like everything else, I think there's a theme here tonight. That just because it's been addressed once doesn't mean it won't be addressed again. But thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments of a general nature from any members of the audience? Very good. Hearing none, and by the way, thank you for all being here and sharing those questions and comments with us. That brings us to item 5 on our agenda, which pertains to council member reports. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to share with those here and folks listening at home various goings on in the community or other items of interest that they would like to share with the community. I just feel like moving to my left tonight, so I'm going to ask Commissioner Barnett if he would like to report anything.
I have no report, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, one thing, this is our last council meeting in September, so I did want to announce the Family Shelter Service is having their annual 5K, 10K Run Walk Be a Hero for Hope. It's going to be held on September 28th. It's Sunday morning. I believe it starts at 8:15, if memory serves. It's at Downers Grove North High School, right by the athletic field, is where it starts, runs through the neighborhood on the north side of Downers Grove. It's a great race. I was there last year, ran the 10K, plan to be there again this year. Looking forward to it and hope to see many of my fellow Downers Grove residents out there supporting a good cause. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. I hope to see you out there again, although I got to insist that you wear some kind of superhero costume this year. I went the distance and had a Spider-Man outfit on, and well, Mayor, I expect at least a cape.
Mayor, I think I'll have to work on that for this year.
All right, well, that's the challenge.
Excellent.
That's the challenge.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jose.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Commissioner Rankin.
The Lester PTA is having their Lester Fun Run on Sunday, October 12th. You can find information on Lester PTA's website. They use the fundraiser to fund activities in the school, and me and Commissioner Jose have children at that school, so I owe it to our community to try to promote participation. Martin has run in it before. Are you going to run in it again?
Yes. Oh, I might leave the Spider-Man costume behind me.
The cape,
I
though?
want to scare the kids.
Capes, though? I mean, come on.
What time is that at?
David will be there.
I think it's 8:30, but
Okay.
I'd like to verify that and get back to you.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to being there.
It's a lot of fun.
All right, there you go.
It was a good time last year, I
Already sold
remember.
one ticket.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Durkin.
I have no report, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Newstead.
Thank you, Mayor. This Saturday is the Village of Downers Grove's Recycling Extravaganza. It's a great event that we've had for a number of years now. The hours are from 8 a.m. till 1 p.m. and it's actually at the Lot H at the Belmont Road train station. We need a lot of space for all of the great goods that we are going to recycle for our residents. Everything from car batteries, American flags, bikes, glasses, a huge list that I can't even go on saying here, electronics, lots of different things can be brought there. A lot of information is on the front page of our website. But I'll also add that we are still looking for some volunteers for the event. If anybody is interested in sparing a couple hours to volunteer for your community in this great event that helps keep materials out of the landfills, you can check also the website at downers.us for ways to help out and volunteer. That's all I have today, Mayor.
Very good. Thanks, Commissioner. Well, my outstanding colleagues have already covered all the ground that I would have covered, so I will not add to the length of the meeting by repeating anything. That then brings us to item 6, public hearings. We have no public hearings tonight, so we will go right to item 7, which is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Are there any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any of the items on the consent agenda tonight? Welcome back, Mr. Waldeck.
Good evening. 2 bites to the apple tonight. Actually, somebody went and put the commuter shuttle on the consent agenda, so I would be remiss if I didn't show up for this. First off, I am concerned that it was, it's a long debated and controversial issue for years, and I'm kind of surprised it was slipped on the weekend notice of a consent agenda. You would think it would at least merit a first reading or at least a notice, even if all of you agree that this is a good move, that it would at least be delayed at least a week for the for public comment. You may not have a lot of comment on it, I don't know, but at least if this gets turned over to PACE, I think any comments that might come in might be useful to them. So I had a problem with this just going on the consent agenda. I understand that the riders were especially informed of this. Is that true? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, because that's their way of getting to work. It's very important to them. Another comment on the item itself. Much is made of the $107,000 deficit, the reason for cutting the contract. I'm just wondering where the $107,000 came from. I know there's verbiage on various things that had to be done and actions and activities, but when we're quoting numbers like that, you would expect to see at least some of the arithmetic involved. And I think that was missing in the statement that was presented to the public in the packet. So if I can, if possible, I'd like to see how that $107,000 was calculated. Not that I necessarily have a problem with it, but I think it's all things, whenever you quote money, you should at least include the arithmetic with it. Comment was made that the transportation fund will disappear in 2015 because of this agreement. At least that was the impression that was given in the write-up. And I don't understand how, this isn't just the commuter shuttle, it was years of the parking and maintenance and even senior staff reimbursement, in and out of the fund to create that deficit. And it wasn't clear that just because this contract is going away that that transportation fund is also going to disappear. Something else also must have to happen before that fund is eliminated. Am I correct on that? And what role will the council and staff continue to play as representatives of people who benefit from this service? The current riders, occasional riders, properties that benefit from having the nearby service. Lastly, PACE had promised to send the mayor's regular reports on usage of routes in the communities, on ridership, fare boxes, etc. And I was just wondering if these have been continually provided at some sort of basis, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, over the last 2 years. This covers not only the shuttle, but the other services that travel through our village. PACE has a policy about fare box recovery, so it's important to know if any of these routes are in jeopardy at any time. As far as the item itself, it could be either the best thing that could happen to the shuttle and potentially the worst. Turning the system over to PACE was a goal even in the 90s when I served on chair of the Transportation Committee, but PACE would not provide the service as needed due to its bureaucracy. PACE has changed and has become more innovative in their thinking, as evidenced by the recent agreements. It's also true that when accepting federal and state funds, there's a whole lot of strings attached to federal money, or federal state money. So, and there are also a lot more regulations and liabilities in offering any transportation service, and that's changed over the 30-some years that this has taken place. If it's 74, let's see, that would make it about 39 years. The bottom line is that I must agree that it is time to cut the last vestiges of our commuter shuttle and turn it over to the agency that receives funding and operates such services. The item verbiage makes it sound like the service will continue under a contractor with PACE, and if this is truly the case, it is as it should be. And all my battles over the years to keep it, and some council members taking up opposition to that. There were a lot of debates. It was an election issue and everything else, and as it turns out, it's quite possible that both sides won. So that's a good thing. It only took 39 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waldeck, and I'm going to go down your list of questions. I think the village manager is going to be able to answer them. They're all fair questions. And I appreciate your last comments there, because as you know, that was a challenge for many, many years, and I would agree with your characterization that sometimes if you work hard at something and you're creative, you really don't have to deal with either or, you can get both. And I think it all sort of ended well, which is a good thing. And we hope to continue to be able to have the service available to those who need it, but in a way that is fiscally responsible to the rest of the community. And with respect to the item being on the agenda, yes, understanding who the immediate micro-constituency is for the commuter shuttle, there were special efforts made to reach out to them in particular and let them know what was going on, what to expect, and what next steps would be, because those are the folks that are most immediately and daily affected by the program. So there will continue to be the service, although the village's involvement will be far different than what it was 30 years ago, for sure. I'll just working backwards with respect to whether PACE has provided those ridership reports. I can tell you, yes, they have. I do receive those periodically. So they have been making good on that representation. With respect to whether the riders will have representation, the answer is yes. They will continue to have representation through their elected officials and through village staff, who will then liaise with PACE to make sure, as much as possible, that they can continue to receive the kind of service that has been indicated to them. So they will continue to have a voice in that respect. It won't be as perhaps direct, because we'll be working with PACE, but that, I think we all agree, is ultimately the best outcome for this situation, given the way the world is today as opposed to 40 years ago. And with respect to the future of the transportation fund and what that means, and also the $107,000, I'll defer to Mr. Fieldman for the details on that.
$107,000 comes from calculating the staff hours spent on operating the system this year, quantifying those hours in terms of dollars, and those are dollars that are not reimbursed to the current PACE contract, and I'll be happy to post that information. What was the other question? Oh, the removal of the fund.
Yes.
Yes, it was a two-step process. Step one was to pay off the accumulated deficit of $1.9 million. That was authorized as part of long-range planning this summer. That will take place as part of the budget proceedings of closeout of the FY14 budget this year. With that move, there would be no funding running through, into, or out of the transportation fund. So therefore, there would be no functions at all, and therefore no reason to have the fund. So when we present the FY15 budget proposal, there will not be a transportation fund.
Thank you for the clarification. And thank you for the questions. Those all pertain to item 7C as in Charlie on our consent agenda. Were there any other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to any items on our consent agenda tonight? Very well. Any questions or comments from members of the village council with respect to any items on the consent agenda? Commissioner Olson.
So just to clarify further on that, the transportation fund, Mr. Waldeck seemed to indicate that there were other items besides the bus that had previously been in the transportation fund. Those items are now no longer a part of the fund.
That's correct. There were changes over several years of moving items that were traditionally in that fund out of that fund starting in about 2005. For the last several years, it's only been the Grove commuter shuttle service.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Any other questions or comments on the consent agenda items from members of the council? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to item 8, our active agenda. We have no items on our active agenda tonight, so that brings us to our first reading or our workshop agenda, where we entertain items for discussion and consideration purposes only, and future action potentially at a later date. We have 2 items under our workshop or first reading agenda tonight, items 9A and 9B, and as is customary, I will turn things over again to Village Manager David Fieldman for presentation of those items. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Tully. Both items are really great news about the purchase of road salt this year, and here to present this information is our Assistant Director of Public Works, Stan Balicki.
Good evening, Mr. Balicki.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The first item of the 2 that Dave referenced is a resolution that appropriates $200,000 in motor fuel tax funds for 2014. This is unexpected revenue in addition to the $1.35 million of MFT funding that was previously received in this fiscal year. As part of the 2014 State of Illinois Capital Bill, municipalities were allocated a total of $100 million through the motor fuel tax program. And this is funding that is in addition to the normal motor fuel tax funding that each community receives. The village recently received a check for $200,000 under this program, which was unbudgeted, and staff recommends that this amount be designated for the purchase of rock salt for this year. Let's lead right into the second item is a motion that is requested for the purchase of bulk road salt from Cargill Incorporated Salt Division of North Olmsted, Ohio, for snow and ice control via the State of Illinois contract at a cost of $58.12 per ton and a not-to-exceed cost of $351,509.76. Approval of this motion authorizes staff to purchase up to 6,048 tons of salt under this contract for the winter of 2014-2015. This is the second of 2 salt contracts that would be in place for this year. Back in March, the Village Council authorized the renewal of this joint purchase agreement with the State of Illinois for the purchase of rock salt. The state has completed the process for the procurement under this contract and has presented this contract for the village's approval. This price for rock salt is 5% higher than what was paid for last snow season. It's noteworthy that earlier this year, in July, the council also approved a contract for rock salt with Morton Salt through a similar process that was coordinated by DuPage County for itself as well as a number of municipalities that chose to participate within the county. Under that agreement, the village agreed to purchase up to a maximum of 2,600 tons of salt, and that will provide a secondary source, of rock salt for snow and ice control operations. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that there might be.
Just to put a broader perspective on it, now the village has positioned ourselves to be more independent and ready for the winter season. We now have 2 salt suppliers at very competitive prices, in fact, much less than the $100 plus prices we've seen. We have 1 large salt dome that should house all the salt we need to get through a typical and even an extreme winter. Can't promise every winter, but we are positioned now with 2 salt suppliers, 1 larger salt dome. We're planning to take delivery of all the salt we should need before we have a snow and ice event. So this is good planning and good fortune, just capped off by the fact that the state gave us $200,000 that we can use to buy the additional salt this season. We're happy to answer any questions.
Terrific. Thank you for that presentation. Before we turn to the council for questions or comments on either of those 2 items, any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to items 9A or 9B? Questions or comments from the council? Commissioner Newstead.
Thank you, Mayor. Dave said it just a minute ago, but I'm going to say it again. We're getting our salt for $58.12 per ton, where other municipalities are $100, $128, $170 per ton. The fact that our staff, our planners, our village council is nimble enough to make, and that's Dave's word, nimble, we used it earlier, I think maybe yesterday, to make these decisions and find the resources for ourselves to get these great prices allows us to have this pricing. It's really unheard of, and it's a great victory. You know, the new salt dome, I was just by there today, it doesn't look like much now, but it's going to be great to have everything here ready to go. Last year, we had an extreme winter, and we learned from it. We've changed, we've modified, and I think this, in conjunction with the knowledge we now have from that extreme winter and a lot of those strange rainy, icy, then snowstorms, will allow us to really be ready to kind of do one of the most important winter municipal services that we do, which is snow and ice control. So this is a great victory for our village and our community. Thank you. Thanks for all the hard work.
Thank you. Other questions or comments, Commissioner Barnett?
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to remind everybody at home watching tonight and whoever might watch later, some of the things that Commissioner Newstead alluded to. If you go to the village's website in the search box, type snow report, one of the first things you'll see is a 2013-14 snow and ice control overview. It's, we got hammered like everybody did last time around. And so one of the things that we did was put a lot of effort into review that and look for opportunities to improve. This is but one of the elements listed in there. I'd encourage everybody to take a look at that and see some of the work that your village does that doesn't always make headlines.
Thank you. Well said. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Durkin?
Yeah, I asked a couple of questions that staff had put out on the council questions. The $347,000 is basically the number that's projected that is going to be needed to fill the new salt dome. Of that 347, do we only need to spend $147,000 because the $200,000 MFT is coming out of that? Or
Correct.
is it actually 537?
Correct. $347,000 total.
Minus the 200.
Minus 200, net 147 to the village.
Okay, and I agree with everything that said. There was a lot of learning. You know, unfortunately, the Farmers Almanac is saying we're going to have a worse winter this year than we did last year, which I hope they are absolutely wrong when they printed that document. But one of the arguments that we had, or one of the reasons why, excuse me, we needed this additional salt dome was because we wanted to be able to maintain all the salt that we would use for a regular snow removal season, as the village manager had alluded to have it all here. So as we use that salt, are we going to be replenishing that salt? Or once the dome is full, it's going to be full until spring unless there's some emergency that we need to buy it?
We have options available. We can choose to replenish and order on a regular basis as we use salt, or we could choose not to reorder. Frankly, with these prices, it would behoove us, if we have the capacity and there's salt available, to continue to keep the salt dome as full as possible. With the market trading at over $100 a ton, we're at $58 a ton, we should take advantage of that pricing.
And I could not agree with you more. My only concern is that we don't get lazy and we become extremely wasteful in spreading salt all over the country. That would include all over Downers Grove. I want to make sure that we are as nimble as we've been hearing and as conservative as we can with safety in mind, that we're not just throwing salt. Because unfortunately, we travel other municipalities, and as soon as one snowflake falls, there's a ton of salt on every intersection, and we've had residents come before us that have questioned us about that. So I would just want to make sure that these prices are great. There's no, you can't debate that. I just want to make sure that we are continuously being conservative in the use of the salt, because the long-term effect of the salt is going to have an impact on the roads. And we all know the nightmare that we have with road replacement and repair around here.
Yes, we've been exercising conservative efforts to make sure that our salt is applied as minimum amount as effective, and also that it goes further. And so we've changed the way we premix salt, we've changed the way we pre-treat streets, and the effect is that we use less salt per snow event and still get the same results.
Okay.
And we'll continue to forward those innovations.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just to pick up on a couple of things that were said, I want to emphasize a different element that should be underscored, appreciated, and that is collaboration. Certainly the supply issues were ones that not only arose out of the recent winter, but we were finding that even in winters that weren't as bad as the most recent one in terms of the volume of snow, that there were supply chain issues that sometimes arose, whether it was a frozen barge access and salt wasn't able to get here, and then it was a problem where we had all these different communities clamoring from the same source. Salt wasn't able to get here. The only way to get it was to pay exorbitant prices in order to continue services, or not put salt down. And of course, the whole issue of how much salt to put down and when to put it down, and is it too much, too little. Those are the sort of briny questions that we face every single year. We try to do the best that we can. But the collaboration issues that I think need to be celebrated are the supply issue, or the supply opportunity was really born of a conversation with DuPage County. When some of the issues that came up and we were talking to the county, they mentioned to us, well, wait a minute, why don't we work together because we can provide you with another source. Our staff pursued that and we came up with another supply source for salt so we're not solely dependent upon one supply chain. The other collaboration issue, of course, that I think needs to be recognized and applauded, is the collaboration with the Downers Grove Sanitary District with respect to the salt dome that allows us to have that extra capacity so that we can store more salt and hopefully get through even a more than normal winter. So it's just another example of not only good planning and good anticipating issues, learning from past challenges, but also collaboration with other units of government to make sure that we're all doing things for our shared constituents better than ever. So thank you and appreciate those items coming before us.
That ends our first reading tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
That ends the first reading. Thank you very much. And good to see you, Mr. Balicki.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of the first reading, as was mentioned, and that brings us to item 10, the mayor's report. I have one important item tonight, and that is a resolution appointing members to boards and commissions. I understand there's one small modification. At the request of one of the applicants, we're going to hold off on one just for a little bit and then revisit it at a later point in time, but we have a whole bunch of appointments to boards and commissions that we need to take care of tonight. And this is a very important topic because we rely very heavily upon the volunteers in our community that serve on our various boards and commissions. And if anyone ever said that being on village council was a thankless task, that's not true. The real thankless task is serving on a board and commission, and yet extremely important as recommending boards. You're really out there in the trenches, so to speak, focusing on very important issues and then bringing recommendations for many things, including some of the innovative topics and actions that have taken place in this community over the years. Many of them are, if not born, they are tested and refined at the board and commission level before they come to the village. Of course, the land use boards are always very important because as new and sometimes high-profile matters, shall we say, are brought before the council, they are initially brought before a board and commission, and then recommendations are made to this council for ultimate approval or not. And while we appreciate all the work and service that our board and commission members undertake, of course, we don't always agree with what they recommend, but that doesn't mean that the recommendations are any less valuable. It helps us make better decisions, it helps the community make better decisions, and it helps our staff do their jobs better. So in advance, I haven't seen anyone running to the door yet. In advance, it's too late now. In advance, I want to thank everyone for their past and continued service on board of commissions. We have both appointments and reappointments tonight, so I will stop at this point, ask for the resolution to be read, then we'll take a motion in a second and allow my colleagues also to weigh in as they may see fit.
A resolution appointing and reappointing members to village boards and commissions. Whereas Mayor Tully has made the following appointments to village boards and commissions, now therefore be it resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Downers Grove does hereby confirm the following appointments. Architectural Design Review Board, reappoint Mike Davenport and David Mathias to 3-year terms expiring August 31, 2017. Appoint Edward Larson to a 2-year term expiring August 31, 2016. Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, reappoint Thomas Bondi, Keith Kalaki, and Jean Marino to 3-year terms expiring August 31, 2017. Community Events Commission, reappoint Andrea Knudsen, Scott Jackaway, and Tony Caceres to 3-year terms expiring August 31, 2017. Environmental Concerns Commission, appoint Troy Riley to a 2-year term expiring August 31, 2016. Appoint Dennis McKean and Daniel Marion to 3-year terms expiring August 31, 2017. Appoint Liz Peloso as chair. Fire Pension Board, appoint Tom Carroll to a 2-year term expiring August 31, 2016. Human Services Commission, appoint Rachel Rondi Gioscaris to a 2-year term expiring August 31, 2016. Appoint Michael Schvaltel to a 3-year term expiring August 31, 2017. Library Board, reappoint David Humphreys to a term expiring August 31, 2019. Liquor Commission, reappoint Alice Strelo as chair and Dan Austin and Don Clary to 3-year terms expiring August 31, 2017. Plan Commission, reappoint Ronald Wackler and Donald Rickard to 3-year terms expiring August 31, 2017. Appoint Robert Bassler to a 3-year term expiring August 31, 2017. Stormwater and Floodplain Oversight Committee, reappoint David Gorman and Robert Rule to 3-year terms expiring August 31, 2017. Transportation and Parking Commission, reappoint Anthony Schiller and Bill Roble to 3-year terms expiring August 31, 2017. Appoint Jim Wilkerson to a 3-year term expiring August 31, 2017. Zoning Board of Appeals, reappoint Joseph Dominion, Diva Mayuskis, and R. Michael McCann to 3-year terms expiring August 31, 2017. Appoint Graham Mosey to a 1-year term expiring August 31, 2015.
Thank you. Long resolution. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution as read?
So moved. Second.
Now I'll entertain any questions or comments from members of the public. I know that there are a number of individuals who are either being appointed or reappointed to boards and commissions here in the audience tonight. We heard from Mr. Roble earlier. I know Ms. Rachel Rondi is here tonight. I think Mr. Carroll's here tonight as well. We thank you for being here tonight. I will pause there and, before I pause for any input from my colleagues, I also just want to thank all of them generally for the role that they play in these appointments. There are a lot of boards and commissions, and the appointments are made and considered in many situations, assisted in interviewing and contact from other members of the council. We're all involved in the process, and I very much appreciate their continued help and assistance in that regard. And so with that, I'll stop and ask if any of my colleagues have any questions or comments on the motion on the table. Hearing none, we're about to vote on it, but I'll thank all of you for your continued service or your new service. Congratulations. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Congratulations. You are appointed or reappointed. Thank you for your service again. That brings us to the end of the mayor's report and brings us to item 11, the manager's report. Mr. Fieldman?
We do have one report tonight. We wanted to provide the council with an update to the current year budget, the FY14 budget, specifically our main operating fund, which is the general fund. And here to present this information is our finance director, Judy Butney.
Good evening, Ms. Button.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Dave said, I'm here to give the update for the 2014 general fund budget. Revenues are expected to end the year at $44.24 million and expenses at $43.91, which results in about $330,000 added to the general fund balance. This leaves us well positioned for planned transfers to the risk and transportation funds. We will be transferring $3.8 million to the risk and transportation funds per the long-range plan in 2014, as was discussed during this summer. These transfers are shown as expenses. Fund balance after the transfers is within the target and the policy. Looking at the budget, revenues are greater than budget, and due primarily to the transfers, FY14 actual expenses will exceed the budget by approximately $4 million. Budget amendment will be required, which council will see in early 2015. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Mayor and council, we wanted to provide that information now so people can track what's happening in the FY14 budget as the FY15 budget document comes out in a couple weeks. There were a lot of changes made throughout the year to the 14 budget. That's why we wanted to show them tonight, because they were all strategic and aligned with our long-range plan and were talked about in depth over the summer planning sessions. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, and I appreciate that preview, because I think it's important, particularly with the fund transfers. Those are being done by design to address some issues that we discussed in long-range planning with available funds. And as I understand it, it's really moving money from one pot to another pot. But because those dollars are coming out of the general fund, and we didn't budget for that this year, it was last year, but it didn't happen, it looks as though there are more expenses coming out of the general fund than were budgeted for, in the number of approximately $4 million. But really, that was by design, moving money from the general fund over to some other funds, so same house, just one room to another room. to take care of some of the issues. So I think I appreciate you highlighting this, so it doesn't look like we're $4 million over budget and expenditures. It's just as an accounting tool, as I understand it, that has to be reflected that way on the ledger. If I remember the 10 minutes of accounting that I had back in high school. And then we did obviously have the more severe winter last year, which did increase some expenses in the general fund beyond what would have been normal. Though that's not the big ticket item. The big ticket item is the transfers, which are by design, not something that was a, oops, went too far. It's moving money from one pot to another. And I see the head nod, so even my limited capacity, I understand. I'm just kidding. We've been discussing it for some time. We all understand it very well. Other questions or comments from members of the council with respect to Ms. Button's presentation or heads up with respect to these items? Not hearing any, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. That ends our report tonight.
We'll be seeing a lot more of you in the near future as we get deeper into the budget cycle. All right, very good. That brings us to item 12 then, the village attorney's report. Ms. Petrarca?
I have no report tonight, Mayor.
No report, thank you very much. It brings us to item 13, council member, new business. Do any members of the village council have any items of new business they would like to raise with the rest of the council at this point in time? Seeing none, that brings us to item 4, which is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you, and good night.